Hey, good morning. Sean Griffin here, Morning Cup of Context, and I hope everyone's doing well. I was reading something interesting this morning in the book of Revelation, and I just thought I'd go over it real quick. It's sometimes a confusing passage to a lot of folks, and I think once we just dig in and grab some context, it'll be pretty easy to understand. So let's get right to it. It's Revelation 6, verses 9 through 10. It says, "When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God, because of the testimony which they had maintained. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" Then in verse 11 it says, "And there were given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest for a little while longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were killed, even as they had been, would be completed also." So this is a passage that many people struggle with. Revelation is a book that's not written entirely in chronological order. It's written in what I consider like bounce moments, little segments of chronology, but sometimes within the same chapter, unless you understand the context of what's being spoken of, like chapters 5 and 6. You can sometimes get confused thinking it's all speaking about the same sequence of events, but it's really not. And so that's why translate from the Greek over to the English sometimes can be a little challenging. But once we find the context, we can just breeze our way right through Revelation and realize exactly what each piece is talking about. Okay? So, what is this place that we just read? What is going on here? So it talked about folks that had been slain, and they were actually petitioning as souls under the altar, that had been petitioning for vengeance, right? They're asking, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" Now, all of Revelation is centered around this main central focal event of the day of the Lord. And that's what they're speaking of right here, is when will you avenge us? When will you judge those who dwell on the earth? And so, let's see exactly where they're talking from, because many people ask, well, where's this altar that these souls are underneath? I don't understand that. There are souls in heaven. Well, the Bible doesn't teach that. We actually go to a place called Sheol that the Bible expresses, which is a holding cell for these souls. That our souls do not go to heaven when we die. Only at the resurrection do we actually go up. And I'll go into that in many other videos about the first resurrection and the Day of the Lord, which is a series I'm going to have on the Context Tree called The Return of the King. It's going to be exciting. So here in Enoch 22, it's actually going to show us what this place is, where these souls are being kept. Enoch 22, 3 and 4. "Then Raphael answered, one of the holy angels who was with me, and he said unto me, These hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yea, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here. And these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, till their appointed period, till the period appointed, till the great judgment comes upon them. I saw the spirits of the children of men who were dead," and this is verse 6 and 7, "and their voice went forth to heaven and made suit. And then I asked Raphael the angel who was with me, and I said unto him, The spirit, who is it, whose voice goes forth to make suit? And he answered me, saying, This is the spirit which went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew. And he makes his suit against him till his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from amongst the seed of men." And for anyone that may be thinking of this, no, I do not I'm not proposing the serpent seed theory, which elaborates on all types of unscriptural concepts that Genesis 4 refutes quite handily. But this is talking about the seed of those who are disobedient, the seed of Cain, just like the seed of Abel is considered metaphorically like the seed of the righteous. So this is what that references right there. Here's the definition of Sheol. In Strong's Concordance, it says it's the grave, hell, or a pit, right? And it says Hades is the Greek word for Sheol. We see that in the New Testament. And it says, or is the world of the dead, as a subterranean retreat, including its accessories and inmates, right? So by this definition, it's not just a grave. It's not just, being buried in the dirt, but it's actually a place underneath the ground, within the earth, that is its own place. Just like we have expressed to us in Enoch 22, these compartment places where the souls of the righteous, the souls of the men are dead, both unrighteous and righteous. They're kept there. So this is what the idea of Sheol is. This is what the Hebrews idea of Sheol has always been. This is what they've taught. And we see Sheol actually mentioned 68 different times in the Old Testament. And sometimes it's translated as graves, other times the context will tell you what it's talking about, right? So it's not always just talking about the dirt. The context will let you know at what point it's speaking about the actual definition as given in Strong's, but also as explained by Enoch, which is this subterranean retreat. So Revelation 6, 9 through 10, let's look at it again with this new perspective. When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who have been slain because of the word of God. And I highlighted here the souls of those who have been slain. So we just saw where those souls go. And then further down it says, how long, on the highlighted areas here, how long will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Well, so now we got the first part of Revelation 6, 9 through 10 and 11 that tells us where these souls are. But let's see if we can find out what it's talking about, if any reference to when they're actually going to get this vengeance they're asking for. And then they were told in Revelation 6:11 to rest for a little while longer until a number of their fellow saints and their brethren were to be killed as they were. So let's see if we can see anything, and also in Enoch 47, verses 1 and 2. Actually, we're going to go into 3 and 4 as well. It says, in those days shall have ascended the prayer of the righteous, and the blood of the righteous from the earth before the Lord of the spirits. So it's the prayer of the righteous ascended. The blood of the righteous, obviously blood doesn't ascend, but it's the idea, their blood crying out from the ground, right? And in those days, the holy ones who dwell above in the heavens shall unite with one voice and supplicate and pray and praise and give thanks and bless the name of the Lord of spirits on behalf of the blood of the righteous which has been shed. So, let's just keep going. I'm not going to stop there for now. And that the prayer of the righteous may not be in vain before the Lord of spirits, that judgment may be done unto them, and that they may not suffer forever. In those days I saw the head of days when he seated him upon the throne of his glory, and the books of the living were opened before him, and all the host which is in heaven above and his counselors stood before him. And the hearts of the holy were filled with joy, because the number of the righteous had been offered, and the prayer of the righteous had been heard, and the blood of the righteous had been required before the Lord of spirits. So here we're seeing some pretty strong parallels to what we just read in Revelation 6, 9 through 11. Okay, so we have this idea in a heavenly setting that the head of days is sitting up there on his throne, and books are open before him. Okay, and I would contend that this passage here in Enoch 47, when it mentions the head of days, it's talking about the actual Father. Okay, it's not talking about the Son of Man, the Messiah. It's talking about the Father himself. And that he's sitting on his throne, and these books are open before him, and we're going to read that in Revelation 5 here in just a minute. It says, because the number of the righteous have been offered. Well, we just saw that in Revelation 6, 9 through 11. And then the prayer of the righteous, the blood of the righteous, has been required before the Lord of spirits. We just saw that mentioned also in Revelation 6, 9 through 11. So back in Revelation 5 is where we get the beginning of this context for Revelation 6. And it talks about, verse 1 opens up the setting of Revelation 5, saying, I saw him in the right hand of him who sat on the throne was a book written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. So here we have a guy sitting on the throne, and in his hand is a book. Okay, and then verse 6 and 7 says, and I saw between the throne, the 4 living creatures, and the elders, a lamb standing as if slain. Now many times this, the way this sentence is composed can be confusing. So it says, I saw between the throne, and it's paraphrasing that there are some living creatures nearby. He said, I saw between the throne and the elders. So between the throne and the elders was someone else standing, and it was a lamb standing as if slain. Now we all know who that is, right? That's the Messiah. So he's not standing on the throne. That was the Father, right? The Messiah is standing in front of the throne between this other group of people called the elders, the angels of his presence, and then actually the throne. So the Lamb is standing in between. It says he came and took the book out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And then verse 9 and 10 says, and they sang a song where, verse 9 and 10, it talks about how they were actually happy. Okay, so when we look back at Enoch 47, it says, and in those days I saw the head of days when he seated himself upon the throne of glory. And the books of the living were open before him. Okay, so here we have the same concept in Revelation 5, that there's him sitting on the throne, and the book is taken out of his hand and opened. Right, so it's the same idea. So we have this dichotomy here of the Father and the Son. So Enoch 47 is talking about the head of days when he seated himself upon the throne of glory, and the books of the living were opened before him. So it doesn't say that he opened the books, someone else opened the books, right? And that's what they're excited and they're singing praise about in Revelation 5, verses 9 and 10. is that they sang a song saying, "Worthy are you," which speaking of the Lamb, "to take the book and to break its seals. You were slain, purchased for God with your blood, men from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. You made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth." So these elders and the people in heaven are happy to see the Lamb go take this book out of the hand of the Father and be able to have the validating authority, right? Because of his pure shed blood and because he overcame, he got to open that up, right? So just in case we're wondering, who's sitting on that throne again? This sometimes can trip people up. And then Revelation 3, 2, and 1, we have Jesus actually expressing clearly to us that he who overcomes, I will grant him to sit down with me on my throne as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. Okay, so now people are thinking there's just one big chair there, right? Okay, but this idea of a throne, I don't doubt that there may actually be a seat called a throne, but this whole idea is referencing the idea of authority, right? He's sitting in, remember Matthew 28, Jesus says the Father gave him all authority in heaven and earth, right? So that's what he's talking about here. When you overcome, right? If you keep my deeds until again, as Revelation 2:10 talks about, then I will give you, if you overcome with me, just as he's saying here, he will let you sit down in that place of authority. That's how they can be a kingdom of priests and rule during the millennial reign. Okay, so this is not only is it a beautiful connection and a promise, but we get this unique description of a heavenly setting of the Father in his throne, the Messiah standing up, taking this book, open the seals, and the one that we read in Revelation 6 is the fifth seal when it's open, and that's where we get that little moment or that description. It may not be chronologically linked, but it's just a description of there's some souls waiting, right? So let's look one more time at Revelation 6. And when the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain because of the word of God, because of the testimony which they had been maintained. They cried out with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" And then verse 11 says, "And there were given to each of them a white robe, that they were told they should rest for a little while longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed, even as they had been, would be completed also." So we saw all those descriptors of context parroted in Enoch 47, 1 through 4. And we see here they were given robes. So these souls who are in Sheol, okay, are given robes, right? This is a place, a cavernous place that Jesus even talks about it in Luke 16 as the backdrop setting for his parable. And so they're talking about this place that they're in, this holding cell, awaiting either judgment or the resurrection. And the righteous, they're making suit. They're crying out, "When will you avenge us? We have been, we're down here and we're waiting for our resurrection." And that's what the white robes are about. They're about to be resurrected. The day of the Lord is about to happen. And that's why they're told that you just need to wait a little while longer, right? We're almost there, just a little while longer. Pacifying them, here's your robe, you're about to be resurrected in your new body, you're going to need this so you're not naked. So it's just a beautiful description of this little moment building up to the first resurrection, building up to the day of the Lord, and he does come and avenge, because he is the blood avenger. That's part of the law, the eternal Torah, is this idea that he has to avenge their blood. That is part of him fulfilling the law on the day of the Lord. Okay, and so I thought that's a beautiful little understanding for making those connections. And we have context from other places in Scripture, and we can know exactly what these things are talking about. And I hope that it helped. And I just want everyone always to remember that context creates comprehension. All right, I hope you have a good day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.